Welcome to the Biohacking Standards, your one-stop podcast where we talk about spirituality, health, and wellness, and all things new. Stick around as we delve deep into innovations to support a better you.
Brent Bruning is a master hand analyst and speaker and founder of The Power in Your Hands. A lot of people hear what Brent does and they think about palm reading. Nothing against palm reading at all, but what Brent does is not psychic. He was trained through the International Institute of Hand Analysis and has spent more than 20 years studying fingerprints, hand shapes, and hand markings as indicators of personality, purpose, behavioral patterns, and nervous system tendencies. Over the course of his career, Brent has analyzed more than 26,000 hands worldwide. This includes entrepreneurs, executives, athletes, and individuals seeking greater self-understanding. Brent's work combines hand analysis, personal transformation, nervous system awareness, and biohacking and longevity concepts to help people identify their innate strengths, stress patterns, and life purpose. Let's welcome Brent Bruning to the show.
Hey there. Today's show is brought to you by Igniton. Imagine this. You walk into the meeting and the names come back. You finish a thought you just started. The grocery list stays in your head until you reach the store. The afternoon does not turn into a slow drift between tabs. Or you read a paragraph and you remember it. Someone tells you a number and you don't even have to write it down. The small things stop slipping through. That's ignicognition. Or the stiffness in the morning eases off. Your body recovers from a hard day faster than it used to. The background hum of feeling older quiets down. The inflammation markers that your doctor keeps bugging you about at your physical have moved in the right direction. Aging stops feeling like a one-way ratchet. That's longevity. What if your mornings suddenly became more vibrant and joyful? Excitement to begin the day replaced the, oh my God, it's time to get up already feeling. That's REM sleep. Or maybe you've got all this under control and you just want to look as good as you feel. No more eye puffiness, less dark circles, a more youthful and brighter look. That's Peptide Eye Serum. I'll be frank, Igniton isn't cheap, but man, does this stuff work. That's because they use quantum energy to make the ingredients work better. I know that sounds crazy, but I've been using this stuff for a while now, and I feel and look better than I ever have. It's the real deal. It turns out quantum isn't just for computers, but it also works on your body. Don't take my word for it. Check out their university studies published in peer-reviewed journals. You can find the studies and these products at igniton.com. And make sure to use code ASHLEY for 15% off without a subscription. That's igniton.com and code ASHLEY to save 15% without a subscription. Thank you.
Brent Bruning, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure, and welcome from Switzerland.
Yes, thank you for making time in your evening for us. It was fantastic meeting you at the biohacking event. I don't know if you remember or not, but we met at the dinner, one of the VIP dinners, and you sat at our table. And unfortunately, I didn't get to talk to you till the very end, and you blew me away.
Thank you. I'm glad I made an impression.
Yeah, it was fascinating. And my colleague Jennifer, who sat right next to you, she can't stop talking about the insights that you shared with her as well. So I was really excited that you were willing to jump on with us so quickly.
Yeah, going over to Dave Asprey's and being at the VIP table is one of the highlights of anyone's career, because you're jumping into these people that are high movers and shakers and they're in a dialogue that is so fun, which is about longevity and how to reverse the age. And it's just fantastic to be able to, it ultimately comes to spiritual wisdom that, and I get this massive download every time I go to one of these events. So it was really great also to be at your table. I mean, God just put me right there. There was absolutely no strategy involved. I just sat down. Next thing you know, I realized the big kahunas that I was with. So it was great.
Oh, it was great. I love the fact that you bring up spirituality like that. That's kind of the unique angle of this show. I always kind of preach that biohacking, forget about trying to take supplements or exercise or eat right or do any of that stuff unless you got your spirit in order. So it's kind of like the standard foundation for all of biohacking is the viewpoint that I'm trying to bring forward with this show.
I
So
don't know when I look at people's hands and I see their spiritual evolution because they work with me for a transition in their life, it always is going up Hawkins scale. So just to edify the Hawkins scale, if you don't know what I'm talking about, is that there was an attempt to try to assign a frequency to translate the set point of where somebody might be, or the default. I see it as the default mode network of somebody's energy, whether it be in a place of pride where most people are, being quite uh, right about your situation. And usually that's protecting some anger. And then you go down further fear, and then down further guilt, and down further shame. So it goes into a place of self-blame or blame of other people. And then as you move up the Hawkins scale, you go into a place of reason and integrity and a spiritual paradigm. And everyone seems to be in different areas, domains, having a certain energy in certain regions. And what I noticed is that to the degree that they happen to be stuck in any one of those, you can see it on their face. You can see it most importantly on their hands. And being able to translate this highly vascular nervous system to people and help them see what their set point is and then how to get up to a higher point is a longevity pattern. It's absolutely a longevity pattern. You're talking about an aging pattern of fight, flight, freeze response, which is ultimately the survival that Hawkins would say. And to the degree that you're telling a survival story versus a Tony Robbins motivating story of triumph, to the degree that you're there, it kind of locks you in place to a certain frequency of growth. And spiritual growth is, I guess, the highest.
yeah, so thank you for that. I wonder, let's take a step back and tell our audience what it is you do, and then we'll get into it a little bit more. But I really want to spread the word about what your work is and help you kind of grow that awareness. And so, why don't you just take a second and give an introduction to what it is that you're doing?
Absolutely. So, I am reading people's hands, though your brain goes immediately going, he's a palm reader. I'm not a palm reader. I'm reading the nervous system. So if you understand that the highest number of nerve endings are in your hands, you got more in your fingertips than you do in your entire arm. And they create these patterns, fingerprints, right? And they're developed in different stages. Every part of your hand is developed in different stages of your evolution. Starting at 7 weeks, you can see 7-week patterns. So this is a work that I'm standing on giants, even from the 1880s. Cummings was one of the founders of dermatoglyphic patterns and seeing how they represent life patterns. Then there was a rapid evolution of that in the 80s as they started to see twins living similar life patterns. Then they had similar brain patterns, and they had identical fingerprint patterns as well as life patterns, right? And then the Institute of Hand Analyst, founded by a man named Richard Unger, had at that time trying to do palmistry and failing. Ultimately, he and his wife had collected 10,000 people's hands, and they recognized that they were failing. They couldn't understand why somebody with the same hand and lines were living completely different patterns. And just by chance, he was doing some research, or actually reading the research that had been done on fingerprints. You know, you see things like ADHD and other lines around these retarded developments within the nervous system showing up in the hand, or Down syndrome or something like that. So he was looking at that research going, well, I wonder if fingerprints have anything to do with it. And he and his wife, they organized everyone by these fingerprints, and lo and behold, they see an amazing story emerge. All the people with, for example, circle on the right ring finger, which is a high neurological development, had a yearning for recognition and fame, a dream for it. And all the people with money issues with a contraction right here had worry, had problems ultimately in responsibility. They were rebels. And so anyway, piece by piece, they were able to map out an entire reality that we live in neurologically. And he did this for years. You know, he's up to 80,000 people's hands in this group, the Institute of Hand Analysis, have collectively, their body has collected 500,000 people's hands. I came along and I developed a very small collection. I only have 26,000 people's hands, which sounds gargantuan to somebody who doesn't look at hands at all. But what you can see there are longevity patterns. And I published a book to show my testing of the International Institute of Hand Analysis, 12 years since 2007, testing him and a teacher to recognize, is there a system in their teaching? It's not psychic. Is it a system? Can it be taught to anyone? And if it's a nervous system, can it be translated in such a way that then could be a science that the other sciences could leverage? So that was my book, published back in 2017. And since then, my work is mainly not reading hands. My work is mainly helping people with these patterns that I've just read that they have been struggling with for 30 years and helping them evolve to the next level. And of course, their hands change to a degree, depending on whether it's a personal issue or a soul issue. Soul issues don't change. Your fingerprints don't change. And I'll explain a little bit more about that if you're interested.
Yeah, absolutely. I find it fascinating. Honestly, I just, what is the difference though? Because I think people are listening. There's still probably some confusion about, okay, what's the difference here that Brent is doing versus, you know, the palm reader that I'll see when I go to New Orleans, or, you know, like what's, obviously you're focusing a lot more on the science end of it, but let's go a little bit deeper in terms of just helping people grasp that this is not psychic, as you said, but more science.
Sure. So when you organize people like butterflies in a butterfly collection, you're doing a new process like understanding the dichotomy of human beings. That process is called phenotyping. It is done through the CIA, FBI. It's basically classifying human beings. Eugenics got a hold of it, made it very unpopular. The Nazis did it. And ultimately, it was deemed forbidden to look at human beings. We can look at animals, we can't look at human beings, sadly, because you're looking at the nervous system. And when you organize people by the shape of their hands and their lines in their hands, you're indeed organizing them by different nervous systems and how they function. A palm reader would look traditionally at astrology. They would use a lot of intuition. And just like if you go to get your astrological reading, you would get a different reading based on the perception or the intuition of that reader. I don't necessarily invalidate that. I'm just saying it is not what I do. It is
right.
What I do is working with the map of these behavioral patterns that you have in your life and your avoidance, where you go into these sabotaging stress patterns of fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and how you act in a dominant way to protect yourself there. And what is the emotional trigger that's causing it all? Ultimately, this leads to a blueprint that your nervous system is carrying because it's overusing certain areas, whether it be the sympathetic or the parasympathetic side of your nervous system. There is a side. And then seeing these patterns and being able to translate that to the owner. And the outcome is, oh my God, how do you know all that you know? So if you give me somebody's hand, I can recreate their face. I know their life pattern. I can imagine them completely. I can step into their body. I can understand their story very well. So it's kind of like if you spend your whole time pushing against money issues and you give me a hand that's in contraction in that area, and I see that indeed this is a transgenerational trauma. Your mother may have had the same fingerprint patterns too. You can start to see not only that I'm reading your hand, I'm reading your lineage's hand. I'm reading your whole family history. And so why am I at a longevity conference instead of crystal fairs? Is because not only have we seen people with the same hands and lines go in reverse of their age without any hard data. I'm just saying their face looks visibly younger for their tribe. But in the process that we're using called the shift, which is a process of taking these patterns that are negative and putting them out in a format that you can see them on a PowerPoint, so you can see it visually, and having your life to the degree that you go through that process, you can see visibly the person completely going through a regeneration. And so therefore, this is being targeted not to the individual so much as it is for longevity clinics, because they have the statistics to back up that they can measure inflammation, they can measure these aging patterns, and for sure, we see a complete reset of the nervous system if you understand the blueprint, and then you can get it out. And that's a step called, or a process that's in all transformational work, called memory reconsolidation.
So is that, I recall when you showed me, we didn't get to spend a lot of time together, but you showed me a couple of images. I think they were on your website of people before and after, with their just very clearly looking rejuvenated or more youthful or more healthy.
Yeah.
What was the before and after in that scenario? Like, what are you helping? You read the hand, and then how do you get the impact of the after that was so obvious in some of the photographs that you showed?
Can I share? I'm not sure if I can. If
Yeah.
I can, I can show some of those examples.
Well, we can try it. If you
Sure, let's go for it. So let's see, window. Yeah. So if you look here, these are only a couple months of people that I've been working with, but I normally, this is my normal 2 weeks now. All right. So how did these people get from this face to that face? Right. They look like they've won the lottery in some cases. Right. The difference is that they have gone through an understanding that first, the trust that I know what I'm doing when I'm giving them the map, and they're edifying it, going, my God, I have all the evidence to tell you about this pattern, this negative pattern, this stressful pattern. So in a hand analysis, we are able to recognize 3 things. Number 1, what is an area where you can do from dusk till dawn and you don't seem to get tired? An area where you seem to have a growth mindset, that you feel so fulfilled that you just run on dopamine from the beginning. That happens to be reading people's hands for me. So when you understand that, you understand what is their zone of genius. And so that's what I'm reading, is where are they in the zone of genius? Okay. Or does that mean that they are all the time? Not at all. It's just, this is the map. Then they have an area where they get triggered. And to the degree that they get triggered, is a degree that they go into a fight, flight, freeze response, and then they behave that you can see from the shape of their hand in a certain way. Because of the shape of his hand, I could guess that he goes into a highly detached, disassociated pattern. So does he, this doctor over here. So other people go into a hyperachieving or an avoidant pattern or a people-pleasing pattern and so forth. That's hyperachieving, that's people-pleasing, that's avoidant, that's hyper-rational. All these things are what Dr. Shirzad Shamin explored wonderfully in his book, Positive Intelligence. Okay, so you have step 2, which is that is your stress pattern. And it's always going to be the same thing, generally. And to the degree that you are in your growth mindset and the degree that you're in your stress pattern is the degree that you're aging. So when we get to the point of the reading, about 45 minutes in, I present both stories and they agree with both, always. But then I say, how much are you in stress pattern? And how much are you in growth pattern? And if they happen to be more than 20% here, that means 1 out of 5 days, they are in a highly implicit, rote stress that they call life. And they've given up. And they're in a chronic stress, which is the foundation of all aging. So most of the time, it's not that they are permanently aged. Most of the time is that their body has been so consumed by and preoccupied with the stress they keep putting themselves in day after day based on a limiting belief that is running, trying to protect them of anger and sadness that they don't even know how to break through. But when they do, just like Bruce Lipton said, the body goes through a massive healing and regenerates. So in other words, I got them out of the way of themselves.
Interesting.
That's not Photoshop. That guy right there is 6 months older than the person to the left. So is that. This guy was going to die any day. Look, he looks like it's his birthday. And this guy, again, is 4 months older than the person left. But who's aging faster? So this, in order to get them to go through this process of the shift, means that you have to put first a language to the stress pattern and then help them understand you're not in it all the time. And then out of that, given that you're not in it, where was the breakdown that ultimately led you to that phase? Was it when you went to the Olympics and broke your Achilles heel and you also were orphaned and all the other things? So it's not just one event, but it is an event that follows a plot, and that plot is neurological. The story that you tell is in your fingerprints. I know that sounds unreal, but when you understand how to read the nervous system, it is not just your brain, it's the entire nervous system that is telling the story, and it is duplicated all the way down to your fingers. Your nervous system is what's telling the story, not just your amygdala, right? And so to get people to go through these big changes in their life, I'll show you the process. It's called memory reconsolidation, and it starts there. You get a hand analysis. 2, you put the shadow of everything that you've ever gone through onto a board. In other words, your stress. Now, if that triggers a fear response in you to look at your past and see everything that your grandparents went through all the way down to present day, and you're going to be in this for another 30 years, given that you've been in it for 30 years, if that triggers you, good. That's a placebo effect. There's nothing dangerous in the room. So a painting and a teddy bear, that's it. This is a 3-year-old who was running through this problem. And you can see that the evidence of her life is putting her into a very bad mood. Good. She had been in and out of even psychotherapy and all the things. And I said, look, just go through this process. If I can help you, and then in exchange, I will do this whole process complimentary if I can put you as a showcase, because I'm going to be sharing personal information. She goes, I don't care. Just help me. And then we organize the feelings that are regulatory, the fight, flight, freeze response. And that's your stress, right? Anger is your stress. Anxiety is your stress. Sadness, guilt, those are your stress. Where's the blood flow now? It's not in your hippocampus. I'm mapping out the story of your amygdala, and I am also projecting it in the future. So we're now also mapping out, you can probably look at it on a functional MRI. You can see the blood flow also going to the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex as she's projecting the future from the past. And she isn't happy about it. She's stuck. Now, go and give me all the times before the men cheated on you, before you were thrown into a bad school system. I don't care if you had a bad boss. Look at the amazing moments that you learned. And if you got hit by a bus, hopefully you would like to see this pass before your eyes and the memories that you have. And in that, look at the placebo effect again. It's just memories. And in that, not that I'm mean, but right now, you have just entered step 2 of memory reconsolidation. You have taken these areas which are limiting beliefs. I've been angry for 7 years because I'm sick of being used and mistreated. You take the limiting beliefs and you completely confront them with completely opposite beliefs. And that is what creates a paradox within the mind. It cannot handle or serve two masters. You can't believe two things at the same time. It has to choose. But you can't cry forever at a funeral, and you can't be angry forever. So if you face your fears and you let this process out, the belief is on very shaky ground. But then you go into all of the most resourceful moments and look at what happens. And then you read all this out loud because I'm not hooked. And then look what happens to her face. And she pops like everyone else does. They all pop at this stage. But this is a temporary neuroplastic state. The nervous system is now going, wow, I'm under an amazing relief. And I say, great, you now, and before the door closes and you go back to relapse, you must generate a vision of your life. Here. Knowing your spiritual lessons of everything that you have done so you stop blaming others and yourself, come to some forgiveness and kindness to everybody that has brought you to that face, and now make a plan of your life. And now she's my assistant. Every time I go to an event, she's doing my receipts, and she's also learning about hand analysis. And so this is the plan. You got to be able to plan your life, but even if you plan it, you still have to create evidence, because in memory reconsolidation, unless you prove to your nervous system by reinforcing through the experiences of your life that you are this new version of yourself, you will just go back. So there's so many people that try to just do spiritual bypassing, and they just do a vision board like today with all their trauma. Try to get that woman right there that's been in and out of drug rehab, even though she never did drugs, and say, do a vision board. It doesn't work. It's called spiritual bypassing. It's the same thing if you asked her to go to a Joe Dispenza retreat. I'm not dissing Joe Dispenza, but she still has to come back to her life and Switzerland society and all of this. So you must deal with what is so in your nervous system. You have to deal with yourself, and that creates the rejuvenating effect. But then you also have to build a life of evidence, and that's what creates these amazing breakthroughs where people ultimately have a whole new lease on life. This is somebody that went through that, and you can see on her face, she ain't having a great day, but this is after the process, but she's in a volatile state. She's in her feminine, she's emotional, but now she has a vision. She wants to speak to everybody about her artistry, and she had good music, thank God. And she ultimately clears things up with her father, and then the father invests in her music studio, and then she ends up getting on BBC with once you've cleared things up with your father after 20 years, you can absolutely use that energy. And that clearing up in your life creates more of a resuscitation to the nervous system than red light therapy and chaga. Clearing things up when you're in a state of here, in a high state of mind, when you're temporarily in the mood, and show up like that does more of a difference to the person. And in that way, then obviously, if I can change whatever mask you're putting over that nervous system, trying to fake it until you make it, if I can get you to here, then of course, your hands that show the discoloration and the lines, well, the lines disappear. Where this is the area of the amygdala, right there, mapped right in a functional MRI. Press that, goes right into that. Is that clear? So I probably went off a little bit too much, but I felt that you need to see the full picture, and then you can see the glory of what we can now do with the nervous system if you know how to develop it. Now in this place, do stem regen. Now in this place, throw all of the tools that you have seen in the biohacker field in that place, but don't do it when you're in your shadow, is what I call, because you must get out of this hardened evidence story. I can't date anymore. I don't talk to my old man anymore. All those things are these things that build up. And then just like I have two little girls, and, I love them to death, but after telling them to, put the towel back in the, and do their homework and go to A to B to C, all those things. When you've done it 30 times, now you get triggered. That's what happens. The nervous system just gets in overwhelm. We are in overwhelm in all the areas of our life, and we get constipated with unprocessed fight, flight, freeze memories. And when you release them, then you look younger. You feel younger. I'm 56 years old. I don't feel that way. I don't identify as a 56-year-old, but I can show you, times where I was going into that and I was believing, oh, I'm older. And if I stayed with that belief that I'm old, then you would see a much, much older version of me.
Thank you for sharing that, Brent. I think you made an excellent point. Well, a lot of great points, but the one that resonates most with me is when you were talking about, again, no offense to Joe Dispenza, but it's hard for anyone to really have a vision of the future and the future life that they want if they've never seen it, or if they aren't able to see it because of the past and the clouds around what has kept them there. I mean, how do you help people? I mean, is it as simple as you asking them to write down or to, put these pictures together and write this stuff down, and then that allows them to confront these shadows of the past, or what else is involved there?
Yeah. So trying to ask someone to come up with a vision that would inspire them when they've been in a hardened story is almost impossible. So you must be able to validate the trauma. It wants to be heard. Nothing else matters until you can finish being the victim. Right? So there's always, in trauma and stress in the amygdala, there's always a trauma triad, right? There's always a victim of self-blame and a perpetrator. We have other names for that. And it's something that you're blaming. And there's always something that's going to get you out, whether it's a new woman, a new country, a new drug, whatever that is. There's the rescue. That is what the trauma triad is. And that must be validated and mapped out completely, because no part of your nervous system really cares about anything else until that is finished processing. So when it is processed and you get angry and you get the rest of it out with compassion, with a level of forgiveness, with an intention to let it go. And I don't care whether your father raped you. I know that sounds tough, right? But I deal with that, right? I deal with people who have murdered. I have people who have seen murder. I've seen the hardest cases. But you must come with a spiritual attention to let go and let God do the judgment. And I'm not trying to profess a certain religion here. I'm just saying it really is that. You have to let God handle that and wish them happiness and health and forgiveness. And as you can let and release these stories of condemnation, then the heart opens. And in that place, naturally, you can be open to remember the good that has, before you were forced into ballet, what did you enjoy about dancing? And in that place, that's why you put it all together. And you put all together, the well-being and all of that. You put that together at a time when you're ready to. And then neurologically, I am able to read that out loud to you. And you've never done that before. Nobody has. They look through a photo album sequentially and they go, well, that was great. But they don't think about how amazing they were when they looked sexy. At the same time when they were in loving with a group, at the same time when they were in a place of success, at the same time when they were on fire learning. And that says, okay, Ashley, meet Ashley, meet Ashley, meet Ashley. Let's all get to know each other and see what belief is driving that. And at that point, you go, well, that's valid. Well, then why can't that be valid tomorrow? And then the old shadow side of that you start to lay down your guns there. And then that begins to open a green zone in areas where you were forbidden. I don't talk to my mother anymore. That opens with a sense of grace. And then that opens a regeneration of that part of your nervous system that hasn't been touched in years. And that is vital. It creates a glow on your face when all parts of you are now in expression. That's a breakthrough.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I can sense the passion that you have for this in terms of helping people. Was that the motivating factor of what you hoped to discover when you got into this?
Yeah, it's a great question. I haven't really thought about it at that level, but I can tell you that in my 20s, I had really low self-esteem and I did everything. In other words, it didn't feel good just being me. Looking in the mirror, I was so dorky. I had glasses, I had braces, I had headgear. I had all those things that made it extremely awkward to be. I had big brothers to compare myself to, and I was just a nerd. And I wasn't a good nerd either, right? I wasn't good at school, so I was just nerdy and not good. I couldn't win for losing. Mm-hmm. And that was incredibly a painful contraction I lived with up until I did some process. I read books. I went to a therapist one time. I had all my self-help books. I was addicted to it. I just dumped them on a table. I go, help me. And she goes, well, maybe you need to get some mother's milk or something. I did landmark education. I don't know if you know about that. That did a number on me. It was a transformational course that was very popular, founded by S that turned into Landmark. And that helped me a lot, but I had a problem with Landmark. I felt great because I could finally break through. I had this experience of a breakthrough. But the longer you're in Landmark, you start to feel that the people are just clear and clear and more clear and more clear. And where's the brain? Where's the meaning? Where's the fulfillment? Where's the contrast? They were trying to divorce themselves from feeling. Ultimately, I got my dreams. I went to Switzerland. I made something out of myself through that program. And I thank Werner Erhard for being able to found that technology, but it wasn't enough. And when I found myself in Switzerland, I found myself yearning for that breakthrough feeling where you had that samadhi experience, where you could just walk around and I had it many times. They never lasted more than a few days, but I had it. And then as I got my hand read, and I got it again by, Pascal Stoessel and Richard Unger, as I got my hand read, I was like, they were totally mapping out why I do all that, right? That why I suffer and the contraction and everything. And I could really feel it in my body as they were touching these points. It's like they were walking through my soul and the pain. And I could really see this pattern just emerging that if I never get out of it, I'm just going to be that guy. And it's just going to be a shallow, I couldn't access my masculinity. It's always kind of like two-dimensional. At that point, I had gotten into software robotics. And so I couldn't get out of this geekiness. I yearned for girls too and all the other things that comes with that. So then this thing happened. I'll tell you. This thing happened when I was in the middle of researching and testing people. I was getting people like Eminem. I was getting their handprint so that I could see for myself, because I was skeptical as I was in software robotics. I was a geek, and I was saying, prove it to me that if I give you a handprint and you're in California, you don't know where I've been. You don't know whether I've been to a hairdresser or somebody famous. And I tested two people, right? Richard Unger and this prodigy here in Switzerland, who's read at that time 25,000 hands. And they were able to guess these patterns. But then when I was having these interviews, something emerged. It happened the first time when I went to the Vatican. I was escorted by the Swiss guards to read the hands of the theological advisor to the Pope. And while we were talking about the nature of the soul, a question that I had after, what are you good and bad at, and what's a problem that you've had? Why are you a cardinal, and why is it that, how do you describe your life? And I'm looking at the hand. But when he got into the topic of the soul, there was a beauty that entered the room. And it wasn't just my feeling. Everyone had it. And it happened continually when we got to that portion of the interview. It happened again when we went across Switzerland to read the hands or collect the hands of somebody who was considered the best heart surgeon in Switzerland. And this was what I called the shift. It was an amazing energy of enlightenment that happened periodically. And I wanted to know what the heck this thing was, because I wasn't Brent Bruning in that phase. I was in a place of enlightenment. We were late on the way there. We were stressed on the way there. We went to this gas station on the way there. And everyone was in the way. I was annoyed because my legal attorney didn't fill up her tank, and we had a photographer, and we were late. There's only one road to get there in Switzerland, and we only have one gas station, right? So we get to the hospital, and we apologize for making this 15 minutes late. It was no problem. And we got to that point with all our stress and everything. And as he talked about his sole wish in his life to open people's hearts, and you see he had a broken heart line. You see his this fingerprint pattern that says, I yearn for connection. And you could feel the whole room open up. That as we walked out of the hospital, you could see the green grass, and everything was just bright. And we go to this restaurant, and even the waitress looks like she's been part of the interview. And then we drive back so I can make a call, and we drive back to that same gas station, and the same Pakistani guy that was there, he looked like he was bright too. And I was like, what is this? It's like a different universe, and it's really bugging me because I know how that guy was. I was right about that. And I know that people in Switzerland don't look you in the eye, but yet that waitress. All right. And so then I began to explore what was going on. And it turned out what I was seeing there was that we have a default mode of contraction to see things in a stressful way. 70% of the time, not 20, unfortunately, 70% of the time we're in our shadow. 70% of the time we're in an amygdala scanning for threats. And while you're doing that, you're not, and if I can show you how to open that field up for you, then you can stop going into this almost rote memory of survival, which I ultimately carves its way into the shape of your nervous system, carving its way with the hormones and neurotransmitters that shape each finger, and giving you a map to just lay it down and go to the next level of your conscious evolution. That's my answer there.
Wow. That's fantastic. It must be very rewarding to have this sort of transformational effect on others, and I commend you for that. And I mean, again, you've brought it up a couple of times. And without bringing a religious connotation to it, it's really God's work.
Mm-hmm. It's
What's
kind of like being
the
in touch with God. I would say
yeah?
it's more like that. It's like the more you go into love and bliss, you are already kind of getting in touch with what God is, and you're letting go of your, in a Buddhist way, your righteousness about how your wants. I want to be successful. I want to have a family. I want to do my work. And everything else, when you're in that, occurs as an interruption. I want to be on time. But when you really let go of that by hearing somebody else talk about a soul wish in their life, you're not present to your wants, you're present to love. That brings you to a higher energy where you feel you're in a state of flow.
So are the fingerprints and the hand patterns revealing our destiny or our potential or just our tendencies, or where in that continuum is this? Because it seems like it's all changeable.
Yeah. I haven't seen any fingerprints change, nor has the FBI so far. At least with the published papers that they have. So the fingerprints reveal a destiny insofar that there's going to be always the same type of problem. It's just going to be manifesting over and over and over. But whether you're present to that problem every day depends on whether you've really compassionately listened to the trauma or the pain that's in it. So fingerprints are transgenerational trauma as well as transgenerational fulfillment patterns. So if you come from a family of artists, you're going to see a family of people with circles on their right ring finger. If you come from a family of families where the Kennedys, you're going to see a family of patterns where circles are all over the left thumb, leaving a legacy. So on and on and on. Right. So you're seeing what is salient. That's the word for it, salient for the person. How they write their story, whether they're complaining or whether they're happy. The way that they describe what is important for them is what you're seeing as the high developed fingerprint. And every area that they're blocking out that they prefer not to deal with, money or family, let's say that they had a contraction in their left thumb, meaning that there's just an arch instead of this bullseye, then they don't know where they belong. They wish they were back in being a Pleiadian. And they have imposter syndrome all the time. I just read that right before this reading. So they deal with that their whole life until they find some peace with it. So it is a destiny, but it's weird that the more that you accept that there is a destiny here, then the more you go up a scale of love and acceptance, which is part of the Hawkins scale, acceptance, and you move to a place of bliss.
Closer to God.
Yeah.
So what is the biggest mistake that
people are making in terms of discovering their true purpose in life based on what you've seen with all the 25,000 hands that you've worked with?
Well, I'll tell you my mistake, and I can tell you that it's being replicated worldwide, is that you think that we try to fix ourselves. Yeah. And to the degree that you fix yourself is the degree that you go down a very hard spiral. I got people fixing themselves with neuropeptides and all that stuff.
Right.
And what that does is it's like trying to heal yourself with a scalpel all the time. And if you look at the beauty and you can just accept that there's pain in your life, if you can accept that and you deal with the pain and you, with compassion, manage it to understand that pain's giving you a need, and whether that pain be anger is a messenger. If you stop killing the messenger and you just get angry, that does more of a healthy impact than any of the, distraction. All the events that I see as guilty, going to all these events and then coming back and then disappointed that your marriage is still not working. Guilty. Totally. My marriage is working now, but totally it wasn't. Right. Anyone who knows me. And that's because I kept going to a sweat lodge and trying to do the work there. Or going to another event and doing Joe Dispenza and all those things, instead of finding peace with my anger, peace in my violence, finding a sense of okayness that I have anger. And that's the part that I was rebelling against. I don't want to feel anger. So while I'm doing that, then I get angry at everyone who's making me angry. So in that, when I found a connection to the amygdala, I found a love for those impulses, the sadness. It became a depthier person, but I also didn't get anxious about it. I just was in it. And now I don't get angry. It's weird. I don't. I feel a sense of empathy or equanimity. I handle stress events that used to totally. I mean, if you look at my life, you see what maybe got a taste of it. It's, 200 people lining up to get a hand reading in one go. All right. That's right. My life. But I don't feel stressed about that. But back then, when I was trying to fix myself and I was angry, that is really rough. So that's the biggest blockage right there, is that you're judging yourself for judging, and you're judging other people for judging.
Right. What, I guess I want to be a little vulnerable here and share a little bit about what you told me. And I don't expect you to remember this completely, but you told me, you wrote on my pen, visionary with inspiration is what you wrote, after you looked at my hand, and you said that
you had that composite. I remember on your left little finger, you had a little S, and I called you Schindler's List. And yeah, I remember your fingerprints. Yeah.
You told me that I needed to go watch Schindler's List, and I haven't yet. I fully intend to. It's a 3-hour movie, and I just haven't had the time to commit to doing it.
You gotta really want it.
But in a weird serendipity, I was telling my wife and my son about this, and I kid you not, like the TV show changed. We happened to just have the TV on in the background, and immediately after I said this to my wife and my son, the Seinfeld episode came on where they talk about Schindler's List, and
I love it.
It was like, my son looked at me and he was like, "No way." and I said, I totally, this is the way the universe works, right? So I wonder if you could maybe share a little bit more about what that, to give people kind of a lens to how this works, right? So that they might be more understanding and excited to work with you. What, based on that, I'm going to go watch the movie. But what is that bringing up in your mind that, that I've been struggling with that I need to be thinking about when I do watch that movie?
Yeah. Well, um, where I was, uh, where I was looking at is, when, when you understand, somebody's life story, you understand the plot of their movie, you'll understand ultimately it is neurological. Okay. So just try to think you got all these nerves trying to keep up with the story. There's cortisol. It's a Tarantino film, right? And
Right.
there's also sadness and there. And so that's a neurological. Somebody's entire life story is neurological. And you live that, and then you have kids in that, then you're going to have maybe a similar story passed on to them. So it's not just us in a movie. We are the story. We are that story, and we are that story that is moving on, and our kids are inheriting that. And when I was looking at your fingerprints, I was reading a very unique fingerprint. Maybe 1 out of 500 people maybe have it. I don't know. I get it probably more statistically more often. And you have this, it's called a composite. It's an S like Superman, and it happens to be, if I remember right, in your left little finger. And what that is, this area right here is the area where you don't have a lot of manipulation in your environment. So you can imagine if I'm holding on to a bottle, I'm using my thumb and I'm using these 2 fingers. These guys aren't so useful. For 400,000 years, they haven't. So when I'm telling a story of manipulation and success and drive, the blood flow goes where? It goes in the muscles, goes into these areas, right? But when I go into an area of letting go and relaxing and trust and surrender and finding God, I'm going into these areas. When you look at the fingerprint patterns there, you can see their relationship to God. No joke. You can see their relationship to truth. You can see their relationship to themselves, which is the left hand, and their connection to themselves and being able to be okay with that connection. And you can see their connection to the outer world. I'm only talking pinkies at the moment, okay? But when you talk about that connection to the outer world, let's say if you had a big circle there, you would be John F. Kennedy. You'd be inspiring people. So when I was looking at your fingerprints, I was seeing, I didn't know what you were doing. I think I confused you with the STEM regen guy, excuse me. But
Yeah.
I was looking at the fact that you have this astonishing need to wow people, and you have this need to connect with people. And we see people, if you organize them there, as stories of wanting to be storytellers, to inspire people, to convert the masses. That's where it's really fun. It's not speaking and singing to the choir. It's persuading people of something that you get a attraction in. So there's a bullseye in your right little finger that says that your nervous system has a lot of voltage in that area. And when you go into inspirational speaking and selling and marketing, you are in your element. You can do this from morning dusk till dawn. In the area of your left little finger, that's your connection to yourself. And there is a vacillation there where when it comes to getting personal, you go into highly personal energy, highly personal stories. You open yourself up. Your heart goes out to others. You feel ultimately naked in that. But then you realize that you've just had the dream where you just went to school naked and nobody else is sharing at the level you are. And now you need to cover yourself. And now you need to hide. Maybe they shouldn't know all these things about how you actually feel. Maybe you should just cut that out. So as you do that, the nervous system goes into retraction. When you do that, you are disconnecting. Them feelings are coming in, saying, I feel this is going to be that bad. You say, hush, hush. I feel they have you. And that is the part that gives us the access to the truth. And when you are suppressing that neurologically, you become blind to the truth. If you were to keep that valve open all day long, you would be vulnerable to the truth all day long. You'd be a healer, hopefully, because you're having so many personal connections. You'd be like the theological advisor of the Pope, who I was reading. But when you have to come from a place where you got to hide, and then you got to open it up again, then you got to hide, you got to open up again, then you are playing both sides. You're saying, you need to know this, and maybe you don't need to know this. You need to know the truth. Maybe you don't need to know the truth. Maybe you need to get connected to the truth. Sometimes you get completely blind to the truth. And as you go into that, while still marketing and still promoting, because those are currents within your nervous system, you got bullseyes there. While this one's going, I don't know, and it's like one of those wheels on a grocery cart that's just constantly doing that, right? Mm-hmm. Then you go into trust and distrust. In Schindler's List, we have a man who was able to purposely use that to play both sides, to work with Nazi Germany and to say, we need to manufacture weapons. Everyone wins. And let's use let's use them to manufacture them. But then, did he need as many that he did? And each one was saved from working in the camps. Next thing you know, he has 10 people doing a one person's job. But he was playing with the truth. I'm going to need, if you're going to want that order, I'm going to need that many more Jews. And they didn't know enough about his industry. So he was lying for a better good. Also, he was in that story feeling disconnected sometimes from the people and feeling distrustful from the people. So this is an area that has a good news and bad news.
Well, I want to be respectful for your time. Thank you so much, Brent. I think what you're doing is wonderful, and it's great to see those faces that you showed. And I encourage everybody who's listening to check Brent out, Brent Bruning. I don't know, what is your website, Brent, so that
the
people
power
can
in your hands.
Say again?
thepowerinyourhands.com. And there you can see I've got a 45-minute and I got a 90-minute. The difference between those is you book 45 minutes and then I just give you the diagram in both cases. But some people want to work through an issue they already know, so choose the 90-minute. If you just want to see what I can see, then just choose it for you. I'm going to talk about your sabotaging stress pattern and how to break through in either case. You'll have the percentage, everything that we said, but the 90-minute just allows you, just like a massage, to go a lot deeper. And sometimes you wish that the massage wouldn't stop at 45 minutes. That's it.
And I'm assuming this can be done remotely then, right? So folks,
all of it. So as soon as they book, they're going to get instructions to go outside and send photos of their hands here and do your fingertips like this and do both hands in their face. The reason why, so that I can show them what their face looked like at the time of the reading, not what they wanted it to be.
Right. Well, it's been fantastic. I really appreciate you taking the time. And if you could hang on a little bit now, afterwards, I want to speak to you as we wrap up. But
sure,
everybody, it's Brent Bruning, The Power in Your Hands, right?
That's right.
thepowerinyourhands.com. Thank you, Brent.
You're welcome.
Hey there. Today's show is brought to you by Igniton. Imagine this. You walk into the meeting and the names come back. You finish a thought you just started. The grocery list stays in your head until you reach the store. The afternoon does not turn into a slow drift between tabs. Or you read a paragraph and you remember it. Someone tells you a number and you don't even have to write it down. The small things stop slipping through. That's ignicognition. Or the stiffness in the morning eases off. Your body recovers from a hard day faster than it used to. The background hum of feeling older quiets down. The inflammation markers that your doctor keeps bugging you about at your physical have moved in the right direction. Aging stops feeling like a one-way ratchet. That's igni longevity. What if your mornings suddenly became more vibrant and joyful? Excitement to begin the day replaced the, oh my God, it's time to get up already feeling? That's Igni REM sleep. Or maybe you've got all this under control and you just want to look as good as you feel. No more eye puffiness, less dark circles, a more youthful and brighter look. That's Igni Peptide Eye Serum. I'll be frank, Igniton isn't cheap, but man, does this stuff work. That's because they use quantum energy to make the ingredients work better. I know that sounds crazy, but I've been using this stuff for a while now, and I feel and look better than I ever have. It's the real deal. It turns out quantum isn't just for computers, but it also works on your body. Don't take my word for it. Check out their university studies published in peer-reviewed journals. You can find the studies and these products at igniton.com. And make sure to use code ASHLEY for 15% off without a subscription. That's igniton.com and code ASHLEY to save 15% without a subscription. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Biohacking Standards, the foundations and fundamentals for a better you.